Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Retro Pop Planet and welcome to the world famous Kellerman's Lodge, aka Mountain Lake Resort here in Giles County, Virginia. And of course, this is the setting for the 1987 movie Dirty Dancing with Jennifer Grey and the late great Patrick Swayze. So I was around 10 or 11 years old when this movie came out, and it didn't interest me at all. It was a romantic comedy, and I, of course, was not into those type of movies. I was into action and adventure and horror, and this movie just did not pique my interest. It wasn't until I saw it, in the early years of college, maybe late high school. It was on HBO all of the time, and that's when I really began to appreciate it and come to love it. It was not an age-appropriate movie for a 10, 11, and 12-year-old, yet all of my classmates, the girls, would reenact the dances. So it's hard to believe they would have seen it that early on, but it's just the way it was. The soundtrack is incredible. It's still incredible. What's hard to believe about the soundtrack is that the music would have been around 20 years old when the movie was filmed, and that would be the equivalent of like Destiny's Child and Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears today. This movie, of course, was supposed to take place in upstate New York, the Catskills. This was an actual last-minute change, low-budget movie, and this location was chosen at the last minute, and it was not expected to do well in the theaters, yet it was a huge box office success. What's brilliant about the movie is because it was so low budget, there really are just a number of different set pieces between this location and then Lake Lure, North Carolina, which we are not going to today. And from seeing some other YouTubers, there's really not a whole lot that you can gather from that. For example, the golf course is private. You have to have access to it. The stairwell, the famous stairwell that Baby goes up and down and does her dancing on, and the bridge in some cases no longer exists, and it's also on private property and it's hard to access. But the cinematographers really did an excellent job in blending the two locations together. And we'll be viewing a couple of those different scenes where we warp from here in Virginia to North Carolina. Now, this is an absolutely gorgeous property. I've been out here several times, including the summer of 1997. I was a student at Virginia Tech, and I was working at the JCPenney's in New River Valley Mall, and we had a summer picnic down here, at a local property. And I had a coworker who actually grew up in Giles, and she remembered when they filmed this movie, what a giant production that it was, but it was a closed set here. She remembers trying to get into the set and trying to get to see Patrick Swayze. She loved this property. She actually took us out here, and it looked just like the movie. It was August of 1997. The grounds, the trees, everything looked the same, including the lake. And that is the one difference from now and the time when the movie was shot. The lake is void of any water. There's no water in the lake, and that's because there's actually a lot of theories that there's a natural drain plug. This is one of two natural lakes in all of Virginia. It's drained, and there's no timetable on when the water is going to return, if it ever returns. And there's a number of different scientific theories on that I won't get into. It may shock you, but there's also been a lot of videos on YouTube from this property over the years. So you've probably seen many of these before, and this is just my version. So in a bit of cinematic trickery, the beginning of the movie, Baby's family drives down this way towards the mountain house. You see a shot of their cabin, and then they drive down here towards Kellerman's and along this way. In reality, coming from 460, you actually come from this direction, but that would have not been as impressive of an intro where you get this great boom shot of Kellerman's Lodge. So they would have driven up here and then around here and then parked in front of the lodge. In reality, they would have come in from this direction because my car is parked right over the hill there.
It's his first real vacation in 6 years, Max. Take it easy.
This, of course, is the famous gazebo, which is used in a number of different famous scenes throughout the movie. This had actually just been built by Virginia Tech in, I believe, 1986. And according to the guide that I'm following here, there was some movie magic that was used to actually hide the date plaque. This 1986 date plaque would have been visible in the movie, but they got creative. Production started in September of 1986 and it was released in 1987.
Mom, Dad, I'm going up to the main house to look around.
Of course, many of the restaurant scenes were filmed here on location, and the area has remained largely unchanged. Baby witnesses some behind-the-scenes conflict between Johnny and Mr. Kellerman, and a lot of exposition and narrative backstory happens at the Houseman's table.
Robbie, these people are my special guests. Give them anything they want.
Now, one thing that has changed is that sliding glass door, which now leads out to a bar and a beer garden.
Enjoy.
Thanks, Max.
Oh, look at all this leftover food.
This movie plaque says that the sconces on the walls, the stone interior, and the tables have not changed since filming took place. Breakfast service had just wrapped up, so thanks to the dining staff for letting me nerd out for a few minutes while they were flipping the tables. Thankfully, Mr. Kellerman dumped Robbie after learning that he was a huge POS. Freaking Neil is such a huge dork. All of the ballroom scenes were filmed at Lake Lure, but I want to show you this cool event space that's on the main level of the resort. And from what I've read, the building where it was filmed has burned down. However, the original wood floor was apparently saved and repurposed into the country club there. Of course, Johnny and Penny have to shame the rest of the summer renters on the dance floor. But check out this room beneath the restaurant. I would say a fair number of movie fans have been fooled into thinking those scenes were filmed here. A large barn was built off to the side of this resort, and it's where they now hold dances where you can actually recreate some of your favorite moves from the movie. I believe they also set it up for weddings and other events. Added this really awesome outdoor pub since the last time I was here. This looks really cool. When I do these filming location videos, I think it's fun to visualize where on a property things actually would have been. For example, I always pictured the auditorium where they do their final scenes to be right off of the dining room. The dining room is right about here, and I always visualize that auditorium to be right along this side here. Of course it's not, but it's interesting to think about. Pre-watermelon. If you look to your left, you'll see the staff quarter sign. Baby sees this sign before she encounters Johnny's cousin with the watermelons. This is also the spot Baby and Johnny hide from her dad. And it was painted red in the movie, and it actually was a different structure completely, hiding natural gas propane tanks. And I remember when I came here maybe 8 years ago, that sign actually was there. I don't remember exactly what it said, but you can see remnants of it. Around this area is where they would have hidden. And you get a number of different angles. But this is a bit of simple yet brilliant cinematography. The movie has you believe this heads up towards the staff quarters, where Baby gets a glimpse of real dancing. And in the movie, they do several different jump cuts. This also would have you believe this leads to her dancing stairs, which are the stairs that lead up to the staff quarters.
This would kill me.
This is about the angle you get of the front lawn games in the movie. Now the swimming pool was not here, but you can clearly see this building here, which has 8 support posts and also Baby's cabin. The white beach would have been right about here. All the lawn games would have been in this general area. Of course, when the movie was filmed in September of '86, most of the grass had started turning brown, the leaves had changed. You can actually see in a number of different shots, the leaves are starting to turn, and they used a food coloring, a green food coloring dye, to actually spray the trees and the grass to make it look like it was midsummer. And they also added the white sand for the beaches and the play area, just to give it a bit more of a festive appearance. Here's Johnny on the take from Vivian Pressman. Let's just say that the timeline of the movie is a little murky, but we're back to the lake on the paper lantern decorated gazebo, where Neil informs Johnny that something is wrong with Penny. And in fact, she's missing. And of course, he uses every opportunity to put those sweet moves on Baby. We get a new shot of a different dock, and in the background of several scenes, I start to notice a pontoon boat, which is also decked out for the party, and I can't believe I never actually noticed it before. There are a couple scenes filmed from this vantage point on this dock. One is where Baby is actually talking to her sister. I believe it's the night of the last evening before Labor Day weekend. And you can actually see the gazebo in the background, and it's beautifully lit during that scene. And you can see the water all throughout here. And when I came here, it looked just like that. It was like twilight, and you could see the twinkling lights reflecting off the lake, and there were summer boaters out on the lake enjoying the twilight and the sun going down, and it was absolutely outstanding. It's still hard to believe that there's no lake anymore. And this was a dock. You can see the winches and tie-ups for boaters. And the lake would have gone out that way, and it wraps around, but it's a natural bowl. And you can see there is patches of water, but that's about it for the lake. Notice, keep out of pond, no swimming, no fishing, no boating. I'm wondering if over time, as the lake receded, this turned into a pond and it was considered dangerous. You can see there's several different drop-off points. And also how long it's been since there was actually any water out here, because look how developed these trees are. While they're on the dock, we get a surprise appearance from Robbie and baby sister Lisa. In movie geography, I think they're supposed to be coming from the golf course. In reality, though, it's a trail that leads off around the lake. If you're a big hiker, there are a number of really great trails in this area. There is also an area called Mini Ball Hill, which is a Civil War location if you're into history.
So, baby, what do you want? You can have anything you want.
I forgot to ask the front desk when I was bothering them with my other questions, but I would imagine these kitchen scenes with Penny would have been filmed here at the resort. They would have run up from the gazebo somewhere around here and jumped over the chains as they were going up to the mountain house to the kitchen. We then go through about 30 minutes where the movie switches to North Carolina. It was filmed at a boys' camp on Lake Lure, which has since burned to the ground. All of the staff cottages were there, as well as the ballroom. I believe the Lake Lure scenes represent Johnny's world, or the future, that he invites Baby into, and the Kellerman's Lodge scenes represent her parents' world and the past. Is that too deep for a rom-com? In hell Johnny would be strong enough to rip one of these posts out. They're in there pretty far down.
You're wild.
What?
Wrong way, Johnny. After smashing in his car window, Johnny drives his car on this road in the wrong direction. You know from check-in, this one-way road actually takes you the other way towards the front lawn and gazebo. What's interesting about that scene is that I believe the window smashing takes place in Lake Lure because it's right outside of Johnny's cabin. but then it cuts to this area where he's driving the wrong way through this tunnel. And this is about the look that you get as they're shooting off. And I did read online that the car belonged to a local. Unclear if it still exists, but that's the car that was used as Johnny's vehicle. It was actually belonged to a local resident here in Giles County. It is also a fire lane, and it clearly states, "Do not enter, wrong way." Johnny, you're such a rebel.
You're wild!
This next scene is one of the great unknowns in cinema history. I'm assuming it also was filmed at Lake Lure, as Mountain Lake is literally up in the mountains, and this dancing log looks too perfectly placed. The creek that they dance on, there's also dispute about where that was filmed. All the information that I found was that it was in Lake Lure. The tree itself looks like it might have been put there by the production crew because it actually looks a little too perfect. You know, it's very stable looking and it's straight and there aren't any branches, and I believe they actually filmed their own scenes there, or there might have been some stunt doubles, but it definitely looks like they are both walking on that log. So I believe that was man-made. So, but there is still a lot of dispute about actually where that was filmed. We're up in the mountains. I don't see any creeks nearby. Could have been filmed down here somewhere in the valley, but I believe that's Lake Lure, North Carolina.
And go. Good. Good. Now hold the position. Hold it. Good. Don't break.
Yes, indeed, we are here. One of the most recognizable and debated upon scenes in movie fandom for this film. So this is what's left of the cinder block platform that Patrick Swayze would have stood on as they were filming the famous lake lift scene. That was filmed in early October. If you look closely, you can actually see the actors' lips are blue. If you look even closer, you can see Jennifer Grey is also very cold. Apparently, they could only do it in 10 or 15 minute segments because it was just, the water was too cold. And Lake Lure, in some instances, people from Lake Lure said that scene was filmed there. It was not. If you look, you can actually see the curvature of the hill, the mountain, just like in the movie. And just picture this with water in it. Apparently, it did take a number of different takes because Jennifer Grey could not stop laughing during that scene, and the actors were actually shivering quite profusely as well. The famous lift scene was filmed here on the east side of the lake. The cinder blocks used for the platform that Johnny stood on during the scene are still there. And we'll go out there because we can actually walk into the lake bed and see where that was filmed. This stone is in memory of Patrick Swayze, 1952 to 2009, for his starring role in the hit movie of 1987, Dirty Dancing, and to his courageous battle with pancreatic cancer, dedicated November 21st, 2009. I love this stone. I think it's great. And apparently it actually came from around the same area where he did his famous water scene. This is actually from the lake. We go through another 20 minutes of Lake Lure scenes. Remember, this is Johnny's world and he's having to take care of Penny, who is pregnant with Robbie's kid. As Baby gets accepted further into Johnny's life, she spends more and more time with him in his comfort zone, in his world. They also have to reach in and grab Mr. Houseman to help Penny in her time of need. Baby also gets her first taste of dance competition, taking Penny's place as Johnny's partner. Another gorgeous shot of the lake with the changing leaves. And brunch on the patio. They filled in the patio several years ago. It's still an eating area, but not completely exposed to the outdoors. There's also a small takeaway cafe inside. In this scene, you also get a very brief but pretty good glimpse of the tennis court, which had been part of this property at least since the 1930s. Swimming pool was added. This was not here during the time of filming. And originally these were tennis courts in the middle century of the 1900s when this was a resort. But this is where all of these summer games were held, where Newman was leading the charge with his bullhorn, where the ladies were working on their hair and makeup. Property is not quite up to its summer speed yet. This is a sand volleyball court. I need to get back down here in the summer. Let's finally talk about the Houseman's cabin. Yes, you can stay here, and it sleeps about 10 people. The main differences in the cabin, and you can see clearly from a shot of the movie, is that the stairwell used to come out from this column here down this direction. That no longer exists. The stairwell is now just a short little step here, probably to make it more ADA compliant, I would guess. But everything else looks the same. And again, this is the Virginia cottage.
He wanted some new ideas. I could have told him some new ideas.
Well, why did you let him talk to you that way?
What do you mean? Fight the boss man?
And they basically stop around here and have their conversation. And the reason they do so, because if they went any further, you would encounter this, and it starts, instead of the stairs and staff quarters, in reality, this is the beginning of a hiking trail. So as they walk up this hill, they have their conversation. They stop under these trees, and then it cuts to North Carolina. And as they're hiding, if you look down, this is the doorway that her parents come out of as she's hiding from her dad. The path to nowhere. One of the last scenes that's filmed here, besides the restaurant, is this beautiful lakefront shot from the gazebo where Baby attempts to reconnect with her dad. Now, what's interesting is this gazebo was originally designed with an open front, as if you could just walk off into the water. But this is basically the shot you get from the movie. Guys, I'm gonna wrap up my video here of the 1987 Dirty Dancing filming locations for Virginia. Eventually, I'd like to do a Lake Lure, North Carolina, but that unfortunately is not going to be on this trip. We're going to wrap up my video here at Francis, aka Baby's cottage. I hope you guys enjoyed this little tour. I hope you guys get to visit this area. This is probably one of the most unique filming locations that I've ever been to, and I've done a number of them because this is such an intimate location. It's an easy walk through, and it's really interesting to see how in some instances they're just flipping cameras around and getting different angles of the same property. It's such an intimate location. I really enjoy coming here. I hope you get a chance to visit. Please give me a like if you like this video. Leave me a comment. Let me know what your favorite song in the movie is. I'm really curious because it's a pretty cool mix of 60s and of course 80s music. And feel free to subscribe if you like this type of video. I've done a number of filming locations, and I've got a lot more that I'm getting ready to put out. And I will see you guys on the next one. Okay, we're not quite done yet. Spoke to a nice lady at front desk reception, and she did confirm that cast and crew stayed on property. However, Jennifer Grey did not stay here. She actually stayed at the Marriott Hotel, which is on Price's Fork in Blacksburg, right next to Virginia Tech. And apparently Patrick Swayze was always at that bar. The Marriott Hotel no longer exists, but I'm gonna do my own jump cut and take you there now. Hey, I was wrong. It is not the Hyatt Place. It's actually a resident inn by Marriott. So when I was in college in the 90s, this was a Marriott, and they actually had a dance club inside. And Thursday night, some of the fraternities would host a ladies' night. And so we came here for maybe like freshman and sophomore year, and then we moved on to other venues to hang out because it was kind of a tired and old property and they stopped using it. But they did have a sunken dance floor, and if Jennifer Grey did stay here and Patrick Swayze did come to this property, I can see why. We're right off of Price's Fork, and we're right off of 460, so this would not have been very far for them to come on off days. And I can see not wanting to stay up in the mountains when they were both young actors. And if they had several days in a row where they were not shooting, we're right next to, this is Virginia Tech, so I can imagine this would have been a much more happening place to be.